Why the world feels so unsafe. How can we stay calm? The world feels heavier lately, more uncertain than usual. Maybe you've noticed it too. Constant stream of news around war, threats of war, what ifs in regards to war. And that's, I guess, on top of all the other craziness out there in the world today. Just recently, actually it was just yesterday, last night, I believe it was yesterday, I only heard of it last night. There was a Chinese spy found here in Australia. Now, this is nothing against anybody. I make no accusations. I'm so anti-war and warfare. It's not funny. But for that to be happening on our own back doorstep when everything else is going on, we all know about, whether it's Russia and Korea or Israel, China. But there's so much going on around the world and other parts of the world that we don't necessarily see on our local news. But there's wars breaking out between factions all around the world. So I don't necessarily want to talk about that because it's very doom and gloom type, all right? But it does have an impact on people, even when you're not directly impacted by the warfare or on the front line as a soldier in this war or any war. But it definitely can have an impact if you let it, okay? And that's what this discussion is going to be about. So, and it's definitely not going to be about politics, all right? It's not going to be about politics. It's going to be a little bit about fear and the fear that this sort of news or information brings forth. But it's more about how to stay clear and grounded when the rest of the world's really just feeling anything but safe right now. So if I look back to my childhood, and even my teenage years and maybe even my 20s, before we became so connected through technology and media, yes, I believe we were as up to date as we needed to be on local news, including any war that might have been going on. Definitely not to the scale as it is in other parts of the world. But we were aware of what was going on around the world. We weren't completely shut off. But the window of news being fed to us wasn't constant. Like, we didn't have phones in our pockets. We didn't have apps, feeding us this information at a rate of knots. And there was only really a couple of select windows for news. There may have been a morning news, I don't know, but when I grew up, we only had two channels on the TV. And I remember there being, I believe it was like a 4 o'clock news and a 6 o'clock news or 6:30 news, I think it was. And that was it. It's all we needed. And obviously the local newspapers. Now, I don't know how you feel about it, but I think media has got a lot to answer for in regards to the amount of fear being impregnated on us, on people, imprinted on us, I should say, is probably a better term. But it leaves us, I guess, lost and overwhelmed just with the sheer amount of stuff that we hear and try to process. But then there's fear as well. So like, a part of me instantly thought, man, what does this mean for us in China? I mean, we've had a rough ride since sort of COVID, maybe a bit before that, to be fair, in regards to like trade issues. But the whole world's got trade issues right now, hardships. But I instantly had this fear of, surely not. Surely this isn't going to result in war in my own backyard. There's enough of it going on around the world. But I believe that the modern level of media and our connectivity it's not a great thing. It definitely it might add to the awareness, but it gets to a point where it's past just being aware of what's going on in the world, and we start becoming inundated with information and concerned about what's going on in the world. And it's a valid point to be concerned. Like, I honestly do feel for all of the people and on both sides of the warfare, wherever it's going on right now. It's horrendous. You know, both sides of whatever camp, any war, even wars I haven't heard about going on in the world. I think they're all nothing but tragedy. So many innocent people getting killed, their lives cut terribly short. For what? What benefit is there in any warfare that's happening in this world? Do you really think that you can take over a country these days, have it yours without question? And for what? You wipe out the populace that was there so that the land then becomes yours? There is nothing like that can happen these days. I'll tell you what will happen. If that's ever tried on, and nations go after nations with enough weaponry to wipe them out, another country will wipe them out, and so on and so forth, until there's little or nothing left except complete and utter destruction. And I would hazard a guess that there's enough chemical warfare hiding somewhere within all of the nations together that alone could cause enough damage. You know? Imagine the whole world being uninhabitable. We've got nowhere else to go. So then it becomes not just the death of innocence, it becomes the extinction of our own species. Not to mention all the other innocent species that inhabit this planet that we should be caretakers of and for. Should be treating them with the utmost of respect, because apparently we're the intelligent species, yeah? Well, if we're that intelligent, war is not the answer. Unity and working together to find ways to keep everyone mentally and physically safe. And all this talk about war and threats of war, it's too much. But I don't want to just be talking about the doom and gloom of things. You know, I hinted on it and amongst that line of talk, I'm quite pro on the fact that everyone deserves the right to be aware of what's going on and to genuinely feel badly for the countries that are suffering with what's going on, and even to a point where, you know, we can support them where we can, although there's a fine line there too, because there's a lot of suffering that goes on in our own country that you don't hear about. There is poverty, there's starvation of children, there are people not doing very well at the moment with the cost of living. There's plenty of, little tent towns popping up around the place. And I feel for these people, especially all the little, the children that are involved in all of this. They got no say. It's terrible. Anyway, I keep moving back to the gloomy side of what this discussion is, but it's enough emphasis on that side. What can we do about it? So you're allowed to think about it. Like me, you're allowed to vent and put it into whatever your creative passion is. For me, obviously, it's creating videos on YouTube. But within reason, like I love life, and I love everything that goes into that, everything that's natural, be it humans, animals, you name it. We all have an equal right to be here and to do the best that we can with what we've got. And war is definitely not that. Nor is hunger and starvation in first world nations, let alone any other nation, but it's happening on our own back doors. People without homes, housing crisis. The rich get richer, the poorer get poorer. In fact, the poor die now. That's horrendous. So what you can do is you can take these stories and turn them into a positive creation. A song, if you're someone that puts song together, write something if you're into literature. For me, it's video. And I just want to remind people that create anything. It doesn't have to be a video, like what I do. But whatever your creative space is, well, let's take one step back. For a start, if you haven't already watched any of my videos, you'll know that I'm a huge advocate and a supporter for every single human being pursuing their creative passion or having a creative outlet. And the reasons for that are numerous, but the most obvious is that is what it's not one. It's not the only, but it's one of the differentiating factors of us as a species. We can communicate, we can talk, and we are artistically driven. We like to create things, whether it's to weld together our own makeshift table or chair, to painting an impressive piece of art, to pressing record on a camera and making your own film or podcast. Very passionate about that. And during these times of uncertainty, which unfortunately I don't see going anywhere anytime soon, and dare I say it, I think things are going to get worse. Not that I want them to, but it's hard to see that things are going to get better in the overall scheme of things in our world at the moment. But what you can do is still offer your creative pieces to the rest of the world. It sounds small and insignificant in the scheme of things when there's wars going on. But we all need this. There's an element of us that are a consumer, whether it be a self-help book that we read or an audio book that we listen to or videos that we watch. Whatever it is that we consume and whatever it is that you provide that benefits someone else, even if it is just yourself, but if it benefits others, that's an even bigger plus. I encourage you to still keep going. Don't let fear of what we hear and see going on around us put you off or stop that from happening. Because that's just another tragedy. Because with everything going on in this world, looking to each other for something that makes us glad to be alive, that's what we need. We need as much of that as possible. And I'll touch on this in another video, but I think for those of us as we get older, not all of us that are older, but the majority, once you hit 40, the impacts of the things that were available to you in your life change. No, I don't mean just the world, the bigger world around you. I mean your own little world changes. And that can make life hard to deal with and work with, let alone everything else that's going on. So please, there's so many people that need your entertainment, your education, your storytelling, whatever it is. Doesn't matter. What does matter is that you still release it and you don't let the negativity of this world stop you in your tracks. Okay? So I'll leave this one here because I've actually got to stop and get some fuel. I'll get realize that. And yeah, by all means, you know what to do. I'm not going to ask you to do specific things, but your support and watching this right through to this far means everything to me. And any additional support you're in a position to offer, whether it's, just a like, that's perfect. All right. Oh, and I love that fact. All right. Excuse the bump. So until next time, look after yourself.